Ready to go.
Holiness family, again, as always, first thing we want to do is thank everybody for being blessed to be online today, as every day. And I first want to start off at the top by commending my man Eitai for the great work that he has done, continue to keep us locked in to the ancestors, sharing with us, and everyone that's online. I really appreciate and value your time, and your spirit, your energy. It's really just a great time
Yes, it
to
is.
be conscious.
Yes, it
I
is.
want to start off by saying that. But what we're going to do today, we're going to remove some myth, some misconceptions, misunderstanding, and hopefully provide the simplistic, evaluation and perception of this concept that we keep using, and Eitai have been doing a fantastic job of keeping it before us in terms of the prophetic framework, and I want to just expand upon that, simplify it, and then go from there. First of all, you remember that I had mentioned to you early on about prophecy. You know, prophecy is the foretelling of an event, and when that event come to pass, it is no longer called prophecy; it is called history.
Okay.
Now, this is very, very important because I want us to understand when you talk about events, I want us to understand no event just happened because of someone says a prophet. You know, the event is the result of what you say you're going to do. Not that you're just talking about something,
Right.
it's something that you have to do to cause the event to manifest itself to verify that what you said was the truth or what you said was not the truth. Let us be clear about that. No events just happen. If we
Correct.
are waiting for something to happen, we done missed it.
That's
Ain't nothing gonna happen without us causing it to happen. And we read this in Amos 3 and 7. Eitai, could you pull that up right quick, Amos 3 and 7, and let us kind of look at this, okay?
got it.
This got to give us, the insight that we must utilize from this day forward if we have not been utilizing this understanding. Amos 3 and 7.
Very
I
good.
do it read.
It reads on this wise: Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now we have to stop right there.
Right. Come on, Nasik.
You not understand this point here is mute or it's coming in multi dead for us to go any further. Any of us going no further.
right.
Right.
If
Right.
we don't understand this point, surely no consideration. If we do not understand that the Lord God will do what? Nothing. But what is he going to do each time?
But he revealeth his secret unto his
Hmm.
servants, the prophets.
Now, then let's let that marinate because I want to explain something about this theory. Because each time, keep this before us now
Hmm. Come
about this
on.
prophetic
Come on.
framework, but
Yes.
I don't know how everybody been digesting it, but I know how we going to digest it from this day forward. And I
Hmm.
know how he's digesting it,
That's
but I
right.
don't know
Hmm.
how we've been digesting it
Hmm.
because this is why he keep it before us.
That's
Right.
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 So let us consider, we're going to look at the word, you know, servant. Okay, we could say he revealed his secrets to his servant. So the servant is the worker. Okay, the
Right.
servant
Hmm.
is the worker. But
Teach.
let's look what the secret is. So we say
Hmm.
the word secret is the word sold.
Yes.
Okay, And it means in Hebrew, it says a session, a company of persons,
Wow.
implying intimacy.
Wow. Wow.
Intimacy.
Right.
Now, that means that there has to be an intimacy between us on this line.
That's
Come
right.
This is
on,
what
Nasik.
we're
That's
every
right.
day. It's intimacy.
Yes.
This is intimacy,
Yes.
where it is intimacy, consultation,
Mm-hmm.
as in deliberation and counsel. So we in deliberation every day.
That's
We cannot
Mm-hmm.
we cannot emphasize this too much. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we get to saying, well, we don't need to be doing this. We don't need to be on. No, no. We
Right.
have to
Got
do
to.
this.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
to do this.
Yes. Come on,
It's a
Nasik.
misconception that we've had about all of this, that we just gonna jump off and do something. What you gonna jump off and do if you don't know what to do? You have
Right.
not agreed upon what to do.
Mm-hmm.
All of these are key points, okay? Another form of the word, and from the root, it means to set, to set down together, not individually, to set down
Right.
together, i.e., to settle. If
Yes.
we have differences about things, we have to sit down together to settle it and to consult. And
Right.
then once we consult with one another, then we must appoint or establish what we're going to do.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, this have to be what at the forefront of what we will understand from this day forward.
Mm-hmm.
This day forward. I don't know about everybody else. I think I can speak pretty much for everybody, but I can't wait every day to get online to what? Feel the intimacy, to
Yes.
feel the
Can.
oneness, the unity, and the concern that we have for us, our people, and all of humanity that desire to be a part of it.
That's right.
Can, Nasik. Yes.
Right.
Likewise.
Hey, okay.
So if it ain't about the people, who is it about?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to move on from there as we look at these events. These events. Now, I'm going to title this portion The End Time Challenge Before Everyone for Deliverance. Now, listen carefully. The End Time Challenge Before Everyone for Deliverance. In the end time. Now, we go back to prophecy now. To prophesize or to express an idea, and that this idea, once you set it in motion or you speak of it, it is called prophecy. But once it goes forth, then it is no longer perceived as prophecy. It is called history. And we've mentioned before about our predicament has nothing to do with our history. We going back again. So all of this going to make sense because see, our history and the history that has been given to us is not the same history.
Right.
Somebody has falsified our history and we bought into it. And so we've been following a prophetic timeline that is what? Not going to happen because ain't nobody going to make it happen for us. We got to make it happen.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me now. So we wonder if anything that was supposed to happen. Now we can kind of see why it haven't happened. Okay? Right. Very important. Foretelling of an event before it occurs and after it occurs, it is called prophecy.
Now,
so, go ahead, Eitai.
Just a little side note. You remember I told you all about that white truck that was in front of the house
right.
when we got cut off? Well, it's out there again. I was trying to bring the camera over, but the cable is not long enough to show you all. But just a little side note. They
Uh-huh.
you know, we should be on here as often as possible.
Yes.
Like that.
Right. So, excellent, excellent. The end time challenge before everyone for deliverance. Okay, now let us consider. The time of everyone's deliverance is revealed in the biblical narrative of the prophet Daniel. In this narrative, it speaks of an unprecedented time of trouble. Mark the word trouble. Mark the word trouble. Write it down, underline trouble, because we really got to understand what we've been reading.
Yes.
An unprecedented time of trouble like there was never since there was a nation. Now, when you just think of, well, what kind of trouble would that? And I know what happens. I know exactly what happens. We start to think about all the bombs falling, all of this thing, and just,
Right.
that's the first thing, all external things.
Right.
Right.
That's a mistake.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mistake. By definition, we're going to show that that's a mistake. Okay? So it says, since there was a nation, although at that time there will be the deliverance for all those that's found written in the book. Now, what book is it talking about? That your name had to be written in it, and if it's not in it, there will not be deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind what we just said about prophecy now, in terms of nothing happens without you causing it to happen.
That's right.
So now, so if there's a book, then you got to be responsible for the book.
Book, right.
I don't want us thinking that we're going to find our name written in the scripture that's already like that. You can say, oh, this is Nasik Aharone here. This is Eitai here. This is Malkiel over here. No. We got to understand this.
Right. Right.
So, we go on. He says, the particular challenge will have to do with an energetic consciousness that will have to stand up or stand for this deliverance. Now, I know we said Michael said he would stand up, but that's an allegory.
That's right.
Ain't no Michael standing up. Michael done already stood up. So we're waiting for him to stand up again, and then we still don't do nothing, and he stand up again, and we don't do nothing, and then we looking for deliverance. Ain't gonna happen. This will not be a particular person called Michael, but an energetic thought form.
Yes, sir.
That will represent or reflect the idea of moving out of the simulated reality back to the organic cosmic reality. Now, if that ain't what this is about, we done missed it again.
That's right.
Yes.
So Michael have to stand up, but Michael is not an individual. Okay? Let us understand that. Moving on. This is an allegorical figure that is called by the name of Michael. This is not to be looked to as an individual person coming to deliver some aspects of humanity. You know how we've been told, if you be good, you're an Israelite, rest of the world, all that. It ain't like that.
Right.
All right? It ain't like that. So we can be clear about this. No. We must see this only as an energetic consciousness referred to as the great prince who stand for the children of thou people. So it will be a great prince And we know when we go back and we say Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and it meant a prince and one who had power with Yah, right?
Mm-hmm.
We remember all of that.
That's right.
We want to us here, within the prophetic framework of the organic reality and not in the simulated reality.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Two different things. So we say at the time, the end time would bring about a challenge before everyone for deliverance. Let's look at the word challenge here. Very, very important. And we're going to look at it from the English. And it says challenge, the verb. From Middle English, challenging. It means to accuse. Now, I'm sure when we say a challenge, we thought some kind of fight was going on, but the fight ain't taking place yet.
Right.
It says first you got to be some kind of, identifying enemy, and then you have to accuse or indict that enemy before you can do. You follow what I'm saying?
There you
He's
go.
got to be indicted. But now we looking for this external enemy to indict. We didn't miss it again.
Come on, Nasik.
We didn't miss it again. It says from Old French challenger, from Latin calumniary, to accuse falsely. Now, here we go. To accuse, from the Latin, it means to accuse falsely. So let us think for a second. Is it possible that we have what? Falsely accused an enemy that we do not understand?
Mm-hmm.
For us to think now, because
Mm-hmm.
this is deliverance now, and it all has to do with an end time challenge. So who are you guys to challenge? Are we really talking about challenging the average man based upon the method that he's already established in the simulated reality? Do we think we can pick up guns and defeat him?
Right.
Come on now.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
So let's follow along. Okay, we're saying now from calumnia means calamuni, verb transit 13th century. It means to demand as due or deserve. So now we talking about challenge. We talking about demanding something that's due or deserved or is required.
Right.
Come on, Nasik. Yes.
Number two, it says to order, to halt, and prove identity. Number three, to dispute, especially as being unjust, invalid, or outmoded. Four, to question formally the legality of legal qualifications. Five, to confront or defy bodily, to dare. And B, of number five, to call out to duel, DUAL, or combat. C, to invite into competition. So now this is challenge now. We're talking about the end time challenge before everyone for deliverance. Now, if we talk about at the end time, we got to understand these things here before we can talk about some deliverance, because you have to be involved in this.
Yes.
And each time, and keeping before us the significance of the feminine energy, and it's going to come out just like he's been laying it out.
Absolutely.
We're going to see. Now we're going to move to the word deliverance. So we're talking about the end time challenge before everyone for deliverance. Deliverance. Now, 13th century. The act of delivering someone or something. And we know that it is written prophetically that every man have to deliver his own self.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now as great as Daniel and great as Job and one other, and then say, but they ain't delivering nobody
Mm-hmm.
but themselves.
Right.
So we looking at this now very, very carefully here. Continuing on, the state of being delivered, especially liberation to rescue. So we're talking about being liberated, and to be liberated, we have, in order to be liberated, someone or something has to rescue us. So what is we need to be liberated from? What do we need to be rescued from? And I'm gonna give you a key up front. We got to be liberated and rescued from dualism. We don't understand the depths of this here.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing on, number 2, something delivered, especially an opinion or decision as a verdict of a jury expressed publicly. Where if there's going to be a verdict and there's going to be a jury, you got to be judge and jury yourself.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be judge and jury, and you have to express it publicly. This is why we are online. This is what we are doing.
That's right.
You know,
Yes.
continuing on. We must remember that we are faced with, we must remember what we are faced with going, and it's going to require a great deal of strength that will have to come from courage to challenge everyone's own belief. And this is where the problem starts. You got to challenge your own belief system. And we all know now where we've come from.
That's
We
right.
go back to our belief in the simulated reality is predicated on duality. There's polarizations in the universe. You have to be what? Dual. You have, there's two sides to every coin, and on and on and on. There's two ways to look at everything. On and on and on. Now you are faced to what? Have to challenge those beliefs if they're going to be deliverance of yourself. Are you following me at this point?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Hey,
This will challenge everyone to display a form of power from within.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this power has to come from within, which means it has to be a change of perception, a change of knowledge, a change of understanding. Other than that, you will have no power to challenge your own personal beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you allow it get into your own personal belief, you're gonna become bogged down, and there will not be any deliverance. You'll end up remaining in the simulated reality. Continuing on, this will challenge everyone to display a form of power from within, to have to let go of the present simulated reality and social structure. So, this is the challenge for everyone. And it's easy to say that, you know, I'm clear about the simulated reality, and I'm going to let it go. But that's the intellectual evaluation of a condition that humanity finds themselves in, or we find ourselves in. But to really, really come to understand and be able to let dualism go is a real serious challenge, a real serious challenge. So we go to the prophetic, narrative here. We're going to Daniel 12, 1 and 2. And all the things that we have talked about before, you're going to hear it in Daniel 12, 1 and 2. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Verse 2. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Now, based upon what we've already talked about, you can clearly see now why everybody will not, you understand, be delivered. But it says everybody going to wake up, but they'll wake up to what? Shame,
That's right.
everlasting contempt, but not deliverance. Because we are challenged with having to what? Consider where the trouble is coming from. We are challenged with understanding where the challenge is coming from. Oh, hold on a minute, Eitai. Put it on pause for a minute.
Okay. All right.
All right. So what we're trying to, call to mind at this particular point is that we have to understand where the challenge is going to come from. And this is not an intellectual, evaluation of a particular time of trouble, an intellectual idea of defeating it. This is all on a whole nother level, of energy, thought form, whole nother level. And what we want to do here now, again, as we look at the reference that we read, 12 and 1, and then when we looked at verse 2, we saw that those that sleep in the dust of the earth, says, shall awake. And then it says, some that will awake will be to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Where you got everlasting life, everlasting contempt. Now, but the trouble is what we have to deal with to determine whether we awaken, from the sleep to everlasting life or to shame and everlasting contempt. So we got everlasting life, we got shame, everlasting shame, and everlasting contempt. Now, one of the things that we want to look at this term trouble, because the term trouble going to give us some insight into what it is that is beginning to open up for us in terms of where the trouble is going to come from. We read trouble. This is from the English. The verb, etymology, Middle English, trouble in, from Old French, troubleur. Also from Old French, assume. Now you've heard that assumption can be a sin,
Right.
So you have to be careful now about the trouble, because you just can't assume and allow your assumption to cause you to what? You understand? To go in the wrong direction. When I say sin, I'm just simply saying make the wrong decision.
Right.
Okay? Go in the wrong direction. Then it says from Latin, troublare, it means to alter. So now we say to assume and now to alter. Now follow closely, because if we've been listening closely, we'll see that we've been talking about things that has been altered from the normal way to the abnormal way. Okay? To alter, of Latin, trouble there. And that means, or turbus, or turbid, or troubled. 13th century. Now that's the etymology. It says 1A, to agitate mentally. So the trouble
Yes.
starts what? An agitation from a mental point of view. Now, you know, we've been talking about this mind versus the brain, you know,
Right.
this mind versus the brain. So in the simulated reality, you are certainly in possession of a mind by the power to define. So we find here now, so your mind or your mentality, you understand, from the mind that you've been given in the programming, you're going to be agitated. I don't know, nobody on the planet ain't agitated today.
Right, right.
But in your agitation, you're also going to find yourself being worrying about what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. So agitate mentally means to worry or be disturbed. Now, when you look at things on the planet using the mind that you've been programmed with, you're always worrying about this and you're always disturbed about things that are happening, you understand, around you. So the prophecy says that when they say peace, peace, there shall be no peace. Sudden destruction breaks out.
Right.
Okay. So when we look at the definition number one, now what we just read, all this had to do with the etymology. Now we come to definition number one, and it says archaic. I mean, it's old and it's not utilized like that. And guess what it means? It means to mistreat. Now, that first thing when we say mistreat and oppress, again, because it's where we've been programmed, we always look external first. Right. First and foremost, the mistreatment by somebody coming from outside. Okay? And we're saying the oppression is based upon something that somebody has done to you externally. I want to share a point with you from a documentary called Chromatica, if I can find it right quick. Chromatica. Bear with me for a minute here. One moment. Eitai, put it on pause for me, please.
All right.
Okay, so we want to tie in this idea of this external mistreatment and oppression. And I'm going to take this from the documentary Chromatica, and I extracted this from the document April 14, 2013. And I just held on to it, but now it's appropriate. It reads, Chromatica. Evolution is a term to define only one organism, and that is the self. The self is the universe. The self is the Alpha and Omega, God and infinity. And that is the only thing that evolves because we are all part of the self. Nothing goes through an evolutionary process alone or without direct benefit to the whole. Let me read that again. Nothing goes through an evolutionary process alone or without direct benefit to the whole. So when you begin to think that there is this controlling elite, this controlling hand behind the curtains, leading the planet to destruction, consider now, when you think the end is near, the apocalypse, Armageddon, and when you think we are a species or are doomed, when we think we are doomed, it is not they. It is you that brought this about. and for a very good reason. You are evolving. Stop blaming everybody and everything else. Quit panicking about global tyranny and natural disasters and pay attention because the world is telling you something. It tells you exactly what is wrong with you and how to fix it.
Wow.
Okay. Okay.
Now, let's consider now. But remember now the simulated reality. So you know near that this definition here has to do with something beyond the simulated reality. Because if you talking about blaming somebody, that's the simulated reality. But when you get into the organic, you understand, reality, now it ain't nothing out there that's in opposition to you other than you yourself in your what? Art form.
That's right.
So we're looking at how to move ourselves out of a way of thinking that has been detrimental to us. Detrimental. Continuing on, archaic, to mistreat, to oppress, to produce physical disorder in. Now, and again, there can be physical disorder caused by somebody. We understand that. But we got to understand that initially everything starts from within self.
That's right.
Physical disorder, then it says afflict. C, to put in exertion or inconvenience. So your thought process can put you into exertion or the energy that will cause you to be inconvenienced, to put into confused motion. Humanity is in a what? Confused motion right now.
That's right.
That final one, it says to become mentally agitated, to worry, to make an effort, be at pains. So this is the English explanation of trouble. Now keep in mind, this is the challenge before everyone for deliverance. So we try to get a handle on this challenge. It's based upon trouble. It's a time of trouble like it never was since there was a nation. Now we're going to go to the Hebrew of the word trouble. And this is where it's going to bring it out and kind of lock it into what the problem is. The word trouble, Sarah, 6869. And it says feminine of 6862. And when I saw that, feminine of 6862, it means tightness, i.e., figuratively, trouble. Tightness, in the figurative or in the energetic realm, we're talking about trouble. In the transit, it means a female rival.
There you
Did
go.
you hear what that?
That's right.
Female rival.
Come on, Nasik.
That's right.
Adversary. Okay? Adversary, affliction, anguish, distress, enmity, tribulation, trouble. Now, all of this comes from, say, a female rival. Well, first of all, let's just ask ourselves, what female rival is challenging any of us? You got to think for a moment now. Where's the rival at? Where's the rival coming? It ain't your sister. It ain't you standing down the street. It ain't your wife. Stop that. Not the problem. The rival is coming from within your consciousness of duality.
That's right.
This is the male and the female energy. That's what's happening. brought humanity to the brink of, you understand, annihilation of their own foolish selves.
That's right. Very.
Female rivalry. 68, 62, Sadra, from 68, 67, mean horror as a noun, a type place usually figuratively trouble. Also a pebble, you know, a pebble
Yeah.
to cramp in, the cramp, as an example, confine. Well, where's the confinement at? You know, we got to understand that the quote unquote mind concept that has been given of has confined us into a place called the simulated reality as being what? The organic reality or the natural thing or the habitat of where you're supposed to reside at. 68, 64, okay, is the transit and opposition as crowding, adversary, afflicted, affliction, anguish, clothed, distressed, enemy. So when we think about all of what we just read, we got to come back now. We got to stop looking external for the trouble. You know, stop blaming something external for the cause. We got to look more within. Continuing on, when looking at the prophetic time cycle, we will closely review a particular time period called the Age of Enlightenment or Age of Reason between 1600 and 1700 was the scientific revolution. Key particular point here.
Yes, sir.
Key particular point. This will help us understand this rival of the female rivalry.
Yes.
You know, it says the scientific social engineering revolution commenced with Francis Bacon, Copernicus, Galileo, Rene Descartes of the 16th and 17th century. Quote, between 1500 and 1700, there was a dramatic shift in the way, Eitai, put it on hold, I'm sorry.
All right.
Hello?
You got it.
Hello?
You can continue.
I don't know. The older copy reads on page 39, quote, between 1500 and 1700, there was a major shift, a dramatic shift in the way people pictured the world and in their whole way of thinking. Now, this is between 1500 and 1700. Keep in mind now, we must understand this is the scientific social engineering, evolution. This is that time that we in.
That's right.
The new mentality and new perception of the cosmos gave our Western civilization the features that are characteristic of the modern era. So here we find that in this modern era, everything that we see that has been featured in this modern era is characteristics of the 15 and 1700, when the dramatic shift of the way people picture the world and in their whole way of thinking. So everything shifted during that cycle of time. And in that shift cycle of time, we can now understand actually what the shift was. And we'll go on and keep reading further within the writing, but we will not do that today. I'm gonna go on and express, the commentary centered around this cycle of time. I go on to say this became the core objective and impetus to reverse the normal order and cycles of the cosmos universe. This was that cycle of time that they began to understand the significance of how important it was for Western science to understand how to halt and reverse the normal order and cycles of the universe, set it into a, reverse order. And in the process of time, who would know, actually what has occurred, because they would be used in science as a major breakthrough in various areas. So we would be applauding them for some areas that they have utilized the scientific, revolution to enhance man's life, but in others, it was to take away from man's life.
That's correct.
And that's the dualistic perception that we find ourselves in. Continuing on, this has been the driving energy and goal which provided for the European aberrant man's very soul advantage, moving into a dramatic way of viewing the universe from singularity and wholeness and oneness to dualism.
Yes.
This would give him, a decided advantage.
Right.
This would call the scientific revolution of the social engineering, program that everybody was being brought under the influence of without it being known. Rationalism became the fundamental idea that everything now is predicated upon reason, being a form of knowledge that is superior to and independent of your sense perception. So now they remove the holistic way of viewing things to what you believe today, and has been taught of what is called the spiritual. And I keep asking myself, well, what is spiritual? And I'm gonna give an example here. I had a conversation today with one of the scholars, and he was explaining to me that the Old Testament being the old covenant under the Mosaic law, and that covenant, was the covenant that we did not keep, and that it had to be a new covenant. Well, I'm jotting down notes as he was talking, Old Testament and New Testament. And then he said, well, the Old Testament and Old Covenant we broke, but we have to have a new covenant. And he said that the new covenant, the law would be put in your inward part. Well, I asked the question then, well, where was the law at in the Old Covenant?
Right.
So, where was it at? It was nowhere. Then now you're going to put it in the inward part. Well, where's the inward part, that in your heart, And so here we are today. We start to talk about these energy meridians within the body. We tend to sometimes want to separate them as opposed to them being what? You understand? Harmoniously functions together.
That's right.
One is more important than us. So we say the heart is more important than us. All this is what we learn in the simulated reality.
Yes.
So we got to reevaluate what we call this spiritual, he talking about the greater law and the lesser law. Well, what is the greater law? And we was taught that the greater law is the truth, and the lesser law is the lie. These are the things that we have been taught. And so naturally this becomes our program foundation that we are working for when we try to, make an evaluation of such prophetic events. And keeping in mind now, as we continue on, It was all about and the Arab man, having the advantage. This is why the shift was so critical between 1500 and 1700. Now, we know that we revealed that it was in 1564 when Queen Elizabeth, you understand, through her, you know, noble, nobility, of black ancestors is how she got her wealth. So we can see during that period of time, then there was something that the black nobility possessed that, Europe, the aberrant person did not possess.
Right.
And so as they come through these cycles of time, we can see how what we call slavery, indentured servitude, etc., prisons of war, we see how all this began to develop. So now as we continue on, it says, whenever the level of knowledge was acquired, was slash is acquired, it was to be used to create the division and separation of the races, which is another of his own construction. This is another social construct, racism. It's a social construct. No such thing as races. But here we go again, social construct within the simulated reality. Goes on to say, there was also another social construction of the European Arab man's creation, such as the many diversified religions. Now, all of this is created and set in motion to what? Maintain the division and separation through rationalism, And as we continue on and say, once the individual accepted any of these various belief systems, they would bring with them division and disunity. There's no way that I can have a religious belief that you don't have, and it don't create division and disunity. And that was the objective of the many diversified religion. Everybody to his own beliefs, everybody to his own faith, everybody believe in the God that he believe in, right. So forth and so on. When we couple the multiple social, religious, political, educational elements that are called culture today, one can clearly see a method of dominance and control. This is why the multiplicity of these what? So-called culture elements that is essential today for people to live. All this social construct within the simulated reality that causes, this dominance and control placed in the hands of the aberrant man. We got to stop. We got to consider everything that we've been taught and everything that we believe. We got to reevaluate it.
That's right.
All of this is, not disconnected or separated any kind of way from the end time challenge before everyone for deliverance. We got to consider all of these things that we are placing on the table. Continuing on, we have to view this narrative from an allegorical perspective. And if we do not, we will deceive ourselves about the time and concept of trouble that never was since there was a nation. So if we look at this any other way than allegorical, we're going to what? Deceive ourselves about a particular cycle of time and the trouble that never was since there was a nation. What do these things mean? A time of trouble like there never was since there was a nation. What it means that this, a prophetic time cycle. So we're trying to gain the correct understanding about this. We read, this time of trouble is the reason that it is said that Michael would stand up for the children of thy people. Michael is an allegorical representation of a form of strength and wisdom needed to be able to transition out of such a time that has never been experienced before in this dispensation. We got to understand that this particular time, called the end time, this is a time cycle that extends from 1500 to where we are today,
That's right.
2000. And this particular time has never been a time of trouble or a time, wherein that the profundity of the division and separation has occurred under the simulated, method of governing called culture. Culture. The multiplicity of these social, religious, political, educational elements that are called culture today can clearly allow us to see the method of dominance and control. And if we can't, it's because we're not trying to see it.
Okay.
So this experience and this dispensation, they're at the fullness of being able to what? Cause one to what? Come into a realm of knowledge that even the average man himself, you know, have no understanding of what he's actually, acquired in terms of the effect it is having upon himself as well as all of humanity. He
Right.
could care less because it's simply about this materialistic way of acquiring all things and turning it into resources that it can be used for his, projection of himself as being the superior, a person on the planet, white supremacy. Continuing on. This is why it is said that many of those that are asleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. The term sleep, 3463, yasha, a primitive root to be slack or languid, i.e., by implying sleep, figuratively, to die. Now, Eitai have been telling us about this. We got to die to an idea
Right.
that is in opposition to the organic, reality. Also, now here's the key point. It says to die, also to grow old, to grow stale, or inveterate. Inveterate. It's inveterate.
Right.
Now, as the adjective, the etymology is to age. To age. Now, we're going to use age in two ways here. We see the concept of, you aging in the sense of being in a condition that in the longer you stay in the condition, the more obstinate and, and the more fixed you become, in that reality that is what? Perceived to be reality, but it's a simulation. We're going to use it in another way. Being firmly established by a long persistence. In other words, the longer you stay in it, the more persistent you be in the cycle of time that you've been in, trying to find ways to justify
There you go.
being in the predicament by what? Looking external of yourself, believing that you is a very immoral person and you ain't right and you need to connect with this creator external of you.
Right.
Now you become more and more, fixed in your beliefs. Now it's going to become a greater, trouble or tribulation for you to what? let go of that,
That's
because
Mm-hmm.
now it confirms in habit. It confirms by a habit of you doing it over and over and over again. It becomes a habit for you.
right.
And when we
Right.
go to the Latin, it says Latin abstemious, the past participle of abstinere, to be resolved. Now you find yourself, in a predicament that you've made it a solution.
Mm.
Continuing on, uh, from OB in the way, or plus snare, akin to stare, to stand. Okay, now you're going to take a stand in defense of your belief.
Right.
And this is exactly what happens with humanity. Whatever your belief is, you must take a stand on it.
Right.
If you fall into the realm of duality, you must defend,
Right.
the polarity that you understand, believe in.
That's right.
And you
Mm-hmm.
must understand war with the individual that does not agree with you.
That's correct.
Okay. Yes.
And first disagreement was within yourself from being
Mm-hmm.
whole. Continuing on, it says 14th century. Number one, perceive, adhering to opinion, purpose, or cause in spite of reason, argument, or persuasion. So this can become, you can become so fixed, and obstinate in your way of viewing things, in this duality, that you would what? In spite of what? It not making sense. You will find a way to argue, to disagree, and that difficult to impossible to persuade, out of that particular belief. And then it goes on and said, not easy to subdue, remedy, or remove. So this leads us to another word that comes from the word sleep. Another word is obstinate. We look at the synonym of obstinate, it means it applies usually to a perverse or unreasonable persistence. Now, think about that. Perverse, unreasonable persistence that you are holding on to of something that you believe, something that you've accepted, something you've been programmed to what? Give all your energy to, without, you understand, it being another way, other than that which, you understand, you've committed yourself to, you're ready to die for it. And
Right.
I'm talking about die in the literal sense. Look at the word persist, the root of the word persistence. Okay, 1582, verb in transit. To remain unchanged or fixed. Now let's go back to some will awaken to what? Everlasting
Right.
shame,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
everlasting
Mm-hmm.
contempt, and
Mm-hmm.
some to everlasting life. We can clearly see how this can happen now. This is not mythical in any way. We can clearly see once you come into this obstinate, persistent way of viewing things, it means to remain unchanged or fixed. Continuing on, the energy consciousness of all that reemerge and remarry and become one whole entity will receive the promise of everlasting life. But all those that will not bring into existence that energy of consciousness to remerge and remarry into one whole entity, they will be the ones that will what? Be awakened to what? Shame,
Mm-hmm.
everlasting shame, and everlasting
Mm-hmm.
contempt. The only way out of it is the what? The energy of remerging and remarrying and becoming one whole entity. Not, you understand, being dualistic, not being duplicitous, duplicitous. says that although that cannot transcend the dualism and the rational, reasonable way of thought will be everlasting shame. And going to shame, it uses the word contumely, contumely, and it means disgrace. Okay, it means disgrace. The prime root of it, 2778, is haraf, and it means to pull, i.e., by implying to expose, as by stripping off, i.e., to betroth, as if a surrender, figurative, to cop at, i.e., by implying defame, defame. And contumely, 14th century, means crude language or treatment arising from haughtiness and contempt. And we know, I mean, you know, when you come into a belief system and you've accepted it, it can be some crude way, you know, of dealing with one another, you know, and your language and your treatment. And all this arises from haughtiness and contempt. So as we look at the word contempt, the number is 1860, meaning there are one from dara, one, an unused root means to repulse, an object of aversion, abhorring, contempt. And contempt in the English, the noun, the act of despising, the state of mind of one who despises, disdains.
Wow.
Lack of respect or reverence for something. Well, the lack of respect and reverence would not be for somebody, but the lack of respect for wholeness, unity, and singularity when you're in duality cause you to have a lack of respect for unity, wholeness, and oneness. So we hit one other point and then we're going to hold off and then we'll come back tomorrow and pick up the final phase of it. So to have an abhorring aversion for state of mind of despising, disdain, the lack of respect and reverence for something, aversion. The noun, 1596, the act of turning away. Now, when we hear the term turn away, we got to look at it from a holistic point of view, because what happens is, you know, and I'm going to first use it in the form of health. And once you come under the dualistic way of thinking, you don't understand how significant it is to change the way that we view the acquisition of the energy that was needed to sustain our life. We then see the vegan diet as the what? Superior diet. But we are finding that according to the vegan diet, we will also find that people that are eating all other things is living just as long as the vegan diet.
Yes.
So what is it that causes us to turn away, you know, from that which gives life to that which what? You know, takes life. We move to another aspect of turning away. Quote, a feeling of repugnance towards something with a desire to avoid or turn from it. Go back again, a feeling of repugnance towards something with a desire to avoid or turn from it. This can be in the form of a direction, a way,
that, the simulated reality through scientific social engineering has caused us to go in the wrong direction, believing it's the right, but it also can have something to do with turning to the things that would give life in the consumption of what you hear as well as what you consume, you understand, with your mouth, the things that you eat. Continuing on. This has a tendency to extinguish a behavior or to avoid a thing or a situation, and especially usually a pleasurable one, because it has been associated with a noxious stimulus. And three, it says one that is the object of aversion. So now let's look very closely as we close the point about your diet. And this is very, very significant here. There is, and we're going to the book of Spontaneous Evolution, and we're going to read a couple things to show you how everything has to do with intelligence. And when we look at this whole idea, okay, I'm gonna pick up on page 259 in the Spontaneous Evolution, and it says here, growth and protection represents energy expending work that is necessary for organismal survival. Over the course of human history, there has been a gradual yet steadily increasing imbalance in the energy expenditures allotted for growth versus that spent on protection. Okay? Physiologists recognize that similar imbalance in the body's energy distribution represents a primary cause of disease and death.
Yes.
I want us to listen carefully now. The fractal reverberation of that unbalanced pattern is also having a negative effect on the vitality of civilization. This is why we got to understand about trouble and the challenge in the final days. An organism's life-sustaining function can be conveniently divided into those that support growth, which include reproduction, and those that provide protection. From a study of individual cells in a culture dish, you can observe a physiological conflict between growth and protection behaviors. When nutrients are placed in front of a cell, and this is what I just read about,
right,
how this noxious, you understand,
right,
concept has its effect. It says if when food is placed, in front of a cell, it says the cell will move toward the nutrients, open and ready to assimilate them. When toxins are placed in front of a cell, however, the cell will close down and move away from the threatening stimulus. Growth behaviors expressed as openness and forward movement are completely opposite to close, retreating protection responses. Therefore, being open and closed or moving forward and backwards at the same time are mutually exclusive, impossible behaviors. Simply, a cell cannot be in a state of growth and protection at the same time.
right.
There cannot be, a cell in the state of growth and protection at the same time. all the energy has to be applied to continue growth. When you understand, move away from protection. So this war that's going on between the feminine rival and the masculine rival, this is where the war is taking place within each and every individual. We got to understand it from this point of view. Quote, ideally, energy is expended for growth and reproduction, with as little as possible spent on defense. This simple differential in energy allocations is due to the fact that energy used for growth nets more energy for the system, while energy used for protection offers no return on investment. Every time you are in what? This war, opposition, this what? This enmity,
Right.
this hatred within self about anything.
Yeah.
Little do we know, we are actually using our energy reserves and what they call energy reserve in fats. It's reserved in the fat. You end up using it, you understand, in this what? War and in this division, in this protection thing that you don't get no return. You continue to diminish, diminish, diminish. And if you stay in that form of thinking, that form of, behavior, you can see how your life is diminishing daily,
Yes.
daily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it says this is why nature designed protection systems with the hope that they would never be used, or at worst used sporadically, to help organisms escape the occasional clutches of life-threatening predators. And see, so this is what this whole scientific social engineering process that took place between the 16 and 1700. There was some underlying thoughts going on as to how to keep you in division, how you would be at war with yourself, and you would what? Life's, expectancy will continue to diminish and diminish and further and further and further you get away from the life cycle. And at a point, you lose complete knowledge of what's the cause of people dying. And I remember Abba Ben-Ami always say, if we are dying, and getting sick and dying is because something we don't know or something that we know and we're not, applying. So I'm taking the position as something that we didn't know. But now
Right.
that we know,
Right.
the great war, the internal war, has to
Mm-hmm.
halt. Has to
Mm-hmm.
halt.
Yes.
Has to halt. Closing it out. He says, certainly the body defense mechanism were never intended nor designed to be used 24/7
Mhm.
as it is too often the case with great numbers of humanity today. Therefore, if an organism needs for protection is out of balance, I read again, therefore, if an organism need for protection is out of balance and plagued by chronic ongoing fears and threats, the excessive energy resources required for protection directly compromise energy reserves needed to sustain life. So we're going to stop there and we'll pick up here tomorrow. But just in closing, we must understand what this deliverance is about. We can see that it has to be, directly connected to transitioning out of the simulated reality of this dualistic way of thinking. If we do not understand this as the major cause of all problems on the planet, may be hard to believe, but it's the major cause of all problems on the planet. Be it what you would call external, you know, the effects it is having on the environment, be it internal, the sickness and disease, you understand, within the environment of various people, you know. It is the destructive force on the planet. It makes you believe there's two sides or two ways to doing everything. So we're closed at this point. Eitai, I can't hear you all.